we are saying that this is commonly called the early lactation phase that ends 70 days in milk. That means postpartum, post-parturition. It ends 70 days in milk. So basically at this particular phase, we know that the cow is in negative energy balance. Not should be or will be, is. That means that is the current situation. And now, this process is basically physiological. And that is why there is now the management concepts that must come in. You must manage. So the cows are in negative energy balance, it is physiological. Again, this phase we have peak milk production. So now being able to balance those two things, cows in negative energy balance and balancing peak milk production, that is where the management concept now comes. In phase 1, we say that milk production increases more rapidly because the capacity is there, and milk production increases more rapidly than feed intake, with the energy demand being higher than the energy intake. Because this is a physiological process, the cow has insufficient appetite. So because there is low appetite, and therefore feed intake is also low, by default energy will also be. We also have, now the animal will have no choice but now to begin mobilizing its own body reserves. So the animal mobilizes its own body reserve as a compensatory mechanism because it needs high milk production, targeting the calf. Now, when we allow the cow to reach that level, then problems. Good, so then now we find that however, the energy at this particular phase is the most limiting, and the health and nutrition of the cow during this phase is very, very critical for the entire lactation performance. And we say that this phase is very critical for enhancing peak milk production. So in phase 1, we say that there is too much weight loss, and this too much weight loss is associated with mobilization of the body. And then because we have too much weight loss, this is very, very detrimental to the cow's health and reproductive performance. And we did say that when you serve a cow that has poor body condition score, then that pregnancy will not be sustained. And therefore, when the pregnancy is not sustained, you might wait for another 21 days for the cow to show heat again. But if you don't correct the reason as to why it lost the pregnancy, you'll also lose another 21 days again. You understand? Do you get the concept? So eventually, you won't attain your target of 1 calf every year. So that is the reproductive performance that we're talking about. And then excessive concentrates is very, very, many people normally around that particular time, because of the excitement of the cows either showing symptoms of negative energy balance or also having poor appetite. So the farmers are frustrated. And because they're frustrated, they begin to increase the amount of concentrates to compensate for the energy loss. Because they will call you and come here, daktari, ng'ombe yangu imezaa 2 weeks ago. Hii ng'ombe yangu imezaa 2 weeks ago, number 1, imeanguka chini. Number 2, haikuli. Number 3, maziwa imepungua. Number 4, haina nguvu. Haya, now as a vet, how will you manage that condition? What people will say, because haikuli, tafadhali, na unapenda dairy milk kama ngapi? Hadi kama kilo kama 6, 5, 6 hivi. Oh, hebu jaribu kuona kama uta increase, tuone kama itafanyika. Ama sio hivyo? See, many people say that. So that is why there is risk of excessive concentrates being consumed around this particular time. But when that happens, prepare for trouble. Prepare for trouble because of lactic acidosis, because of laminitis, loss of appetite, and of course, low milk production. When you do that, prepare for that trouble next. Then, in this particular phase, instead of now the excessive concentrates, now nutritionists have been able to now explore the concept of alternative to energy, and that alternative is through the use of fat. We say that we have the energy sources are normally number 1, concentrates. Number 2, of course, the fodder. Number 3, of course, is fats. Now, if you're to compare, fats gives you energy. Then you can compare concentrates and even fodder. Now, based on that principle, that is why the use of fats has come in as a savior to many dairy farms. Because it's giving you 3 times as much energy. Then there's no need of using excessive of concentrates, which there are repercussions attached to it. Now remember, in excess of energy, is it normally being wasted? In excess of energy, if you give an animal food or fodder that has excess of energy, where does the excess energy go to? It will be stored in the body under the adipose what? Tissue. Now excess of proteins zinaendanga wapi? They'll be secreted out of the body. So meaning that if you give fats that are broken down to give the tiny fatty acids, in excess of the energy that comes out of it becomes stored back into the body in form of adipose what? Adipose tissue. So do you get the concept? So that's why it has become now a savior to many dairy enterprises. Then if the cow is underfed during this stage, then milk production cannot recover. So that is very, very important to note, that if the cow is underfed during this stage, then milk production cannot recover even when balanced rations are fed at later stages. You can only achieve peak in phase 1. Hiyo ikishapita imepita. So if you have to look at profitability for a dairy enterprises, you look for it in phase what? If you want to make profits in a dairy enterprise, please do what it takes in phase 1. Phase 2 is basically for maintenance. Then phase 3 is now the phase of positive energy balance. So now we have enough. In excess is being stored in form of fats. The cow is now thinking about the next what? Lactation cycle. So in terms of production, hapo hivyo you don't get anything. So feed intake therefore meets energy requirements for milk production, and the milk production now begins to decline. So here there's no much profits that you can make from this cow. And then we also have restoration of the body reserves, because we know that in phase 1, if you allowed it to happen, the cows had to mobilize their own body reserves for the purposes of milk production. Then in phase 4 is commonly called the dry period. It normally lasts about 60 days or thereabout. And now we know that the cow will continue to gain weight because of the developing conceptus. Okay? And proper feeding of cows during this phase will help to realize the cow's potential during the next lactation. So already all the focus is now in the next what? The next lactation. Okay? And to minimize health problems at calving time, we also have to reduce concentrates intake to avoid overconditioning. Now, what are the dangers of overconditioning at phase 4? So there will be dystocia. And when we have dystocia, when you manage dystocia, then more problems can easily arise, especially if you don't manage dystocia very well, then you're going to, there's the risk of damaging which kind of nerve? The obturator nerve. When you touch the obturator nerve, what will happen next? The cow will be a downer. If the cow is a downer, then the prognosis might be 50-50. Either you might be able to slaughter this cow, it can be slaughtered, or the response might take a very slow process. So those are very, very important things to always remember. And then also, we want to feed bulky roughages. And these bulky roughages, what is the main target? To increase the rumen what? Size. And now we know that at this particular time, the conceptus is growing at a very rapid rate and pressing against the what? Rumen. If you don't intervene, then the rumen will be very small when the animal just calms down, and therefore predisposes this cow to more negative energy balance problems. Do you get the concept? We have another unique formulation in the market by the name white energy. And white energy is another very unique way or a unique approach to animal nutrition. And white energy is basically a rumen bypass fat. Now, it's a rumen bypass fat because it has high melting point. Once it lands together with the concentrates in the rumen, then because of its high melting point, no activity will act on it in the rumen. So by default, it is bypassed down into the bomesum. And once it lands into the bomesum, fats gives you averagely about 3 times as much more energy compared to concentrates. And that is the idea of white energy. Now, when you give white energy, because it will be broken down very, very fast in the abomasum, it gives you very, very high level of energy, then it will communicate with the brain to tell the body to now please stop mobilizing your reserves because you now have adequate energy. So because of that high level of energy, the immediate result that you will see out of application or use of white energy will be a sharp increase in milk production.